I want to talk about an audition system. Now, you got to develop your own system. And what we're talking about is being in a situation where from the time you get an audition, whether you get it on your own or get it from an agent, your email comes in, you go into autopilot mode where you're just like laser focused. You see the date and the deadline that it's due, and you just go into autopilot knowing exactly what you need to do to prep it, to rehearse it, all the way to recording and submitting it. So you can take some notes, of course, too. You can check back to the replay if you miss any of this. And feel free throughout this, ask some questions to clarify. I'm not going to suggest that this needs to be your system verbatim. And I don't want to give you that. You got to find your own, what works for you. I'm just going to share what works for me and what I strive to do and what I've been improving to do and what we do here in the studio and what we see top actors here in our studio at Actors Audition Club doing. So the acronym HERO, by the way, if you know me, I fucking love acronyms. They save time. We don't have time to say all these sentences. We need to say acronyms, AKA. So HERO, what does that stand for? We're going to start with home studio. We live in a day and age where a lot of your auditions are self-submit and or via Zoom. Even before that, you should have been at the point where you have a home studio. Everyone on the call today, as an actor, as a creator, as a performer, make the shift from you're just an artist / actor to you are a media company. You are a media company, meaning you have the ability to record and broadcast yourself to the entire globe right now. So what does that mean? You need to have a dedicated space at home where you can create and you can record. Now, the level of studio, like that can range from very amateur in the beginning to super professional. But the faster you can get it to as professional as possible, the better. So I'm not saying that you have to invest a certain amount of money or you have to do X, Y, and Z. But I'm saying the more you do, the more you invest, the better you make it, the better your results will be and the better return on that investment that you'll get. So what I'm saying is take a look at your home studio. And here's why this is important. If every time you get an audition, and this is what used to happen to me, so I may be preaching to the choir. I'm certainly preaching to myself. I used to have to figure out, okay, first, where am I going to record this? I didn't have a dedicated studio space, so I got to move tables around and chairs and take things off the wall. Got to move lamps around or find a window to give me natural light, take pictures off the wall. I got to stack books up and find a good spot for the camera. And then all of a sudden you're spending an hour of your day just to get to the point where you have a setup that works. And then on top of that, you also have to find someone to be a reader and or camera operator. So that's a whole other ball of wax for people too. And we're going to talk about all of those things. But what do you need? Basically, you need a professional HD camera, which everyone on this call, I'm assuming you either have one of these or you have a laptop or some kind of tablet. So your camera is not the issue. You might need a tripod. You don't want a shaky frame. You don't really want to you could set it up on books or something. You're always recording in landscape mode, not Instagram reel or TikTok mode. That's an instant show that you're an unprofessional or potentially an amateur to casting directors. You need decent lighting. So think about what do you need? It doesn't need to be state of the art, cutting edge. They need to see you clearly, light on your face, light on your eyes, no shadows. You don't want to be backlit. If you have a light or a window behind you, all of a sudden your shadow and the light coming through the window blows out the camera. And they need to be able to hear you. That could be your onboard camera mic. Some people invest in lav mics or what's called a shotgun mic. We can reach out regarding certain tech setups. You can reach out for them. I don't want to get into that too much. The reason is tech changes all the time. So I can't give you like a tech lesson because next year one of those things is going to be obsolete as they've upgraded. And then the new shiny object is going to come out. So just know that what you need to do is take a real, like an audit of your setup and be like, is this the best it could be right now? Do I have a neutral backdrop? Do I need to get a fabric backdrop? Do I need to get a green screen? Highly suggest a green screen, because then you can take advantage of the power of virtual backdrops. We submit all kinds of them here, where the scene is in a bar, or it's in a boardroom, or it's in a subway station. Oh, there goes the blur again. And he's back. So a green screen is a great idea. You can really up level your game. Now, caveat to green screens, you got to make sure that you do them well. If you're disappearing and sort of like, you guys know what I mean, if you're doing a bad Zoom virtual backdrop where your arms are disappearing or props are disappearing in the backdrop, it's going to be very distracting. Also, it can't be super distracting. So if you choose a backdrop that has all kinds of things and it's very busy, that's going to pull focus from you. Or if it has words in the back or signs with words on them, it's still got to be neutral, and it needs to complement you. So whatever your backdrop is, whether it's virtual or just a blank screen, it needs to still create a situation where you are the focus. What else can we say about home studios? Brandon, you want to pop on? I want to introduce Brandon Knox, aka the BK Broiler. He's a fantastic actor, and he's run hundreds of audition sessions here at Laughing Vikings. Anything you want to add to home studios?
No, I think you covered a lot of what we talk about, especially on the podcast that we do on Monday, and like what we work with at the studio. I think basically what you covered is pretty much everything that we've talked and spoken about, really.
Okay, so I'll tell you what my setup is currently.
Yeah.
And everything I have here, with the exception of the laptop, is maybe $300 or less. So I have right now my laptop is on a laptop tripod, which is basically a laptop stand that is on a tripod. It's adjustable, so I can adjust it if I'm seated or standing. It goes to about 6 feet tall. You always want lens to be eye level, so that you're not a weird thing where the lens is below you and it looks like you're way above it, or where you're down here looking up at the lens. Is generally you want to have lens at eye level. I have two soft lights, which I'll show you the kind that I have. I'll see if I can do this. Can you see that? See a little bit of that? I don't know if you can quite see that, but you see them all the time on online. And I have a webcam. I have like maybe $100 webcam attached. I don't use the webcam in my laptop because generally their quality isn't great. And I have an external mic here as well. This is like a voiceover mic, what's called a cardioid microphone. So this isn't like thousands, and I don't have like a $10,000 studio setup, but like everything $500 or less. And if right now $500 is sending alarm bells, you can do it way less than that. You have your phone. You can buy a little phone tripod or a phone attachment that clips onto something, and a ring light.
Yeah, most ring lights will have a phone attachment for you anyway. Yeah.
One caveat about ring lights, I personally sometimes am not a fan, because depending on how close you are to them, they do that halo effect in your eyes, and it makes you kind of look a little bit like an alien, and it sort of changes your the eyes are the gateway to the soul, so people need to see your true eyes. So just watch that. If your eyes are, if you're watching a tape that you filmed and you had a ring light and your eyes look like you're some kind of weird alien, it might be a little distracting. You might just adjust some of the lighting and figure that out. But again, don't overthink this. One of my least favorite things to see is someone just fretting or having what they call paralysis by analysis, where you're spending 6 months deciding on a microphone or a webcam. Do some quick YouTube research, do some quick Google search, and then just make a decision, knowing that you're not needing to find your forever studio right now, especially if you're just starting out. You need a basic setup so they can see you and hear you that is as good as it can be right now. And then know that as a professional throughout your life and career, you're going to constantly up level that. So don't allow that paralysis. Especially, I see it all the time with people who start podcasts. They're like, oh, I want to start a podcast. And they spend 6 months figuring out what microphone to buy. It's like, you could just use your phone and record it, and you would have 20 episodes of your podcast already. So spend maybe an afternoon and then just make a decision. The hours and hours and hours that you spend, especially if you're price comparing, don't spend a whole day to save $50, because what you just did is you just valued your own time at $5 an hour, less than minimum wage. When you aspire to be a leading player that's earning thousands of dollars an hour on set, you can't be doing $5 an hour jobs. So just don't waste that time. So home studio, there's a million resources online. Everything I say here, literally, you could do in a YouTube Google search, and in half an hour, you watch a couple of videos. But the main thing is up level. So wherever you are right now, my challenge to you is up level your studio. Ideally, a dedicated space. We have a studio here in Toronto for, and soon to be in other cities, for people who don't have a home studio, or for people who have a spot, but it's unreliable sound wise. There's always jackhammers or noisy neighbors, or their dog and kids are always too noisy, or they just don't have a reliable reader or session director. Sometimes it's not the studio that's the issue. Sometimes you need a helper to work with you, which is why we exist here at Actors Audition Club. But do what you can with what you got where you are, and then up level, up level, up level, up level. So my challenge to you, and I'll talk about it a little later, is look at your home setup and figure out what could be better. If you don't have a dedicated space, negotiate with your spouse and kids for that den, or for the laundry room, or for the corner of the living room, for that blank wall and some space and some quiet. Maybe it's some sound blankets. Maybe it's there's a million things to do, but just improve it, knowing that you're a media company, and to be an actor today without a means for a home studio and to submit via Zoom and to jump on Zooms, you almost can't participate in the industry without having that ability. So you got to look at that first before you look at all of those other things. But again, first look at craft and acting classes. No sense having a brilliant home studio if you don't know what you're doing in the first place. So that's H, home studio. E, I'm going to call execution. This is that checklist mode. What is execution? When you execute something, you're executing a plan. An executor of a will, they're going through a checklist that the deceased person had presented to them, and they're going through their wishes and following through and figuring out, okay, this property goes there, this money goes there. It's all on a list. Who gets what? So you want to put together a list from the time you get an audition to the time you record it, which we're going to talk about next. What are you doing? So we're going to talk about some of those things. So what do you typically get? If you're getting it from an agent, or if you're finding it online, ideally you're seeing who the producers are, who the writers are, what the project is, the co-producers, the casting directors. You're getting that project information. So right away, part of that checklist should be look up the producers, look up the production company, look up that director, look up that writer. If it's a show that already exists, you got to watch that show. You can't be auditioning for Law and Order like it's an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So if you don't know the show, you need to figure out the world you're in and a little bit about the tone and how the actors, just what the world is like. Again, you can have very, very contrasting worlds if you don't look at that, and you'll look at the words in your sides and you'll say them fine. They'll look at your audition and be like, this guy has no idea what this show is, doesn't know the tone of it at all. An example is that show C. Everyone doesn't have the ability to see in that show. So if you were to audition and not realize that your character cannot see, you're going to be acting in a way that just does not fit the show. Production's going to see that, and they're going to be like, well, we certainly can't cast this guy. He doesn't even know the world that he's in. So learning those things and taking that time. The next thing that I would do is you take your sides. Personally, I like to write out all of my lines, sometimes the other characters' lines too, but you can, some people have preference. Some people only do their lines. Others do both. But what we do here, and Brandon and I can talk about this, is we take out, and this is shout out to Tom Todoroff again. This is who taught us this. He takes out all the punctuation and all the little stage directions. So little things like commas and periods and exclamation points, because acting isn't grammatical. In real life, we don't talk I don't start a sentence and then pause at a comma and then pause at a period. I'm just stream of consciousness. We think in terms of ideas and we think long thoughts. So if you're pausing at every period and every comma and all the punctuation and you're playing it exactly that way, it's going to be very slow and boring. It's not going to be truthful. It's not going to seem like real life. And the casting and production team, if they've watched 50 of these and you're beat by beat, word by word, following the punctuation, they are going to be falling asleep and it's just not going to work. You're not going to stand out. And the other thing is little stage directions like he sighs or he sits down. With rare exception, take the vast majority of those out. That was for the writer to help the director out and or the actors a little bit, but it's your job as the actor to take that off the page. And one of the fastest ways to blend in is to play all the punctuation and play all the stage directions. And you're not going to get cast for how well you sat. Be like, oh shit, did you see how that guy sat right when the script told him to sit? Brilliant. Like that's never going to be an issue, and never worry about that either. It's not going to be a thing where they're like, oh shit, the guy didn't sit when it said to sit. Is he going to be able to follow directions? It's not really about that in an audition. So take all that stuff out, and then that frees you up where you're not bound by those stage directions and bound by the punctuation. You're going to appear like a real live human being. You're going to be able to make choices that pop off the page and that aren't cookie cutter like everyone else. Can you add to that, Brandon?
Yeah, I love taking out the punctuation. I really, again, for most plays, especially when they say someone sits or someone stands or mumbles or whispers or whatever, most of the time that is just what happened in that original production. It's not anything that you need to be concerned about. Especially the mumbles and whispers. You don't want to be doing that anyway because you want to be clear. You want to have diction. You want to be supported by your voice because that's our main instrument, right? That is one of our main points of connecting with somebody else is our voice and our mannerisms. And so we want to be using that so that way we're coming across and we're using everything at our disposal to make those choices and to make the most interesting choices for a casting director that's like, oh wow, that was different. I wasn't expecting them to do that. Be unpredictable, as Tom likes to say.
Right. Yeah. And it's not about being unpredictable just for the sake of it. This is what I feel. You got to really think, what is my job as an actor in an audition scenario? I mean, the first thing is to tell the story. It's story beats everything. You have to tell the story. They need to see you and hear you. You have to communicate the story. You have to communicate the words, but you have to take them off the page and not just give a reading that is punctuation and following stage directions. You have to make this a real life, living, breathing human being. And if you want to be cast in that role, you have to show your unique skills and your unique talents as a human being, who you are, show them who you are. And we all love Tom's saying, you got to pee on it. You got to make it yours, like a dog would pee on something to mark his territory, so that you can take the script from being, he always shows us here, from if this is a script, you don't want the script out here and I'm an actor and here's the character and there's this weird separation. You want to take it and all of a sudden the script is in here as part of you because you've made strong, unique choices that are personalized to you. So, and that's where your personality shines and your charisma shines. So that's, I think, what the task is. It's your job is to tell the story in the most compelling way, showing your full range as a human being, as a performer. So that's physical, that's vocal variation, that's any special skills. If you're a singer and you can sing a line or weave in a little musicality to it, if you're a dancer and you have a background in music and there's a spot where you can throw in a little spin or anything personal to you. Obviously humor is amazing. If you have a sense of humor and you can find little humorous, funny moments. Tom always loves to say funny is money. There's never a time where you laugh at someone and like when you laugh, that's proof positive that what you did was successful. It's like so endearing when you make people laugh. It's surprising, they didn't see it coming and they laugh, and you're going to be higher in those books than people who weren't funny. But again, not being funny for the sake of funny. I'm not saying like just be wacky and jokey and make faces. You got to tell the story first, but tell it uniquely you. So I think that's the what we're aiming for. What were you going to say, Brandon?
Yeah, it also comes down to you having fun with it, because the more we're having fun doing the role, doing the audition, the more that's going to read in the tape, in the audition that you're going to be submitting, because you're actively engaged in it.
Right.
That's so important.
Yeah, you need to be a fully alive and fully expressive human being. And that's, if you think of all these A-listers or stars, they have that X factor. That X factor really, aside from years and years of craft and training, is they have a vitality and a charisma and a spark inside them. They let you know how they feel about everything. They're in the moment, they're present, they react to everything. They listen very well, but they're an alive human being that you're not looking at them thinking like, oh, this is the character. You're just watching a human being be fully expressive and react in the moment. So let's talk about, so that's kind of the execution. R is rehearsal and recording. So you get the script, you look up the production, you write down all the words, you get rid of the punctuation, you get rid of the stage directions. Now, what is the work? What do? It's a Friday night and you got to record this before Monday. What is your weekend spent doing? It's spent rehearsing or rehearing. And I want to reiterate something that we've been taught is I believe separate yourself from the idea of there's a stage that you are memorizing lines, and then when you memorize lines, then you're starting to rehearse. The rehearsal process starts with, I would say, call it learning the lines, but you're learning them vocally and organically and getting them in your body. We're always told 250 times as a minimum. So that means saying it a different way, saying it while you're washing the dishes, while you're going on a run, while you're on the phone with somebody, lying down at night, saying it in different voices and different dialects, singing one, going really fast on one, going really slow in one, adding crazy physicality. Maybe you do one where you are ballroom dancing through the whole thing. Do it a million different ways. Michael Caine famously is known by saying that before he steps on set, he has said his lines aloud through a whole movie. All of his lines, he's said them aloud 1,000 times before he gets on set. And that's so that they are in your body. So the thing that you want to avoid is this phase of memorization, which is all in your head, where like if you ever find yourself as an actor with sides, these are sides here, if I'm just going like, or just reading them in my head silently. That's not what it is. You're not helping yourself. If you do that, what you're going to do is you're going to memorize them one way, all intellectually in your brain, and then you're going to have to almost shake all of that off to then infuse it in your body. So you might as well learn it in your body, learn it aloud, vocally, using your full vocal resonance and your full range of vocal variation by and also using the famous line from Hamlet's advice to the players: suit the action to the word and the word to the action. So if you are putting actions and physicality to it on certain words, what movements and what motions make sense. That might mean a little bit of blocking. If there's a quiet moment or an intense moment, that might mean this is when I get close. If I'm backing away, you might be figuring out some of that blocking based on those words. But really getting it in your body. And like Pippa was saying, if you have those ideas after the fact, maybe it means you need to front end load your preparation so that you're having all those ideas throughout rehearsals and audition. And the thing that, again, we highly recommend take a class with Tom. A lot of Tom's training is based on this book. If you don't have this book yet, this is Michael Shirtliff, The Audition. Brandon's going to flash his too. There's something called guideposts in here. We don't have the scope to go into it in this workshop, but really your rehearsal period and your prep period is the word rehearsal. So saying aloud, hearing the words, what did that sound like? What does that word sound like? How could I change that? How could I adjust that? Did that feel connected? Did that sound connected? Was that emotional? But it's also a series of questions. And that's what this book is. When you look at a script, really what you're doing is you're asking yourself as an actor and as the character a series of questions, and your performance is the answers to those questions. So it's going step by step through a technique and through a process. And this is where acting classes come through, and learning a technique and learning a framework. Ours is largely based in Michael Shirtliff's audition, and a handful of other techniques that Tom has taught us, so that every time we look at an audition, we're not stabbing at the dark, we're not winging it, we're not just judging it and going by our gut. We're following an exact process by asking a checklist of questions about the script and about the character, who is you, not never refer to the character as he or him or them. It's you. You're the character, and that's in those given circumstances. So personalize it. And then in your rehearsal and prep period, it's asking those questions, answering them with the strongest choices as well. So don't release the idea of what do they want. That's not what the job is. Your job isn't to be a mind reader and be like, oh, what do they want me to do? Oh, there's 1,000 ways I could do this. You want me to say it like this? You want me to say it like this? You want me to sit down? You want me to stand up? That's not how you get things in your life. And it's not how you get things in the acting world. You don't get things in your life by asking everyone, oh, what should I want? What should I do? Should I do this? Should I sit? Should I stand? No, you just decide what you want and then you go out and fight for it. And in the acting world, that means infusing your performance with all of the colors of the rainbow. Tom loves to say, don't make one choice when you can make three. Don't make three choices when you can make 33. So don't look at a script and be like, oh, do they want me to be happy here or do they want me to be mad? And then you're just painting, I'm going to wash this with yellow or I'm going to wash this with gray, whether I want to be happy or angry. No, you want to be a little bit of everything. And the full human experience is everything is everything. You've been at funerals and someone made you laugh. You've been at comedy shows and maybe you got a text message and some devastating news and you're at a comedy show, but you're crying. So everything is everything in life. So it's about painting with all the colors and seeing possibilities instead of looking at it as a test of like, oh, what do they want me to do here? Look at a script and be like, what can I do with this? What is the strongest choice? How many colors and possibilities can I infuse into this? Not right or wrong, it's weak or strong, which is something that we hear in conservatory as well. There's no right or wrong. This is art. There's no subjective, oh, you said that the wrong way. But there is truthful and not truthful. If I don't believe it, it takes me out of it. And there's a weak choice versus a strong choice. So it's how do you feel about everything? What are the strongest choices? Using all the guideposts or using your entire technique, your entire body, vocal variation, viewpoints, all of those sort of things. Do you want to add anything to that, Brandon?
Yeah, I think the first question that I always ask whenever I'm working with someone at Laughing Vikings is, what's your emotional connection to the other character that you're speaking to? And sometimes they have a very concise answer, and sometimes it is a very long, factual answer that doesn't really help them. And it's reshaping that idea that facts alone aren't enough. Tom likes to say it comes from the hips, comes from the heart, it comes from the head. That is last. Your head wants to do all the work, but it can't. It can't feed into somebody emotionally. And that is what we want and what we're striving for as performers, as actors. We want to be connecting to our audience and to the other person emotionally, as Lars brought up before. And what I always like to do, the first thing I do, especially in rehearsals, is I always step the text. It immediately helps me get the words into my body and I'm wandering around. I pace a lot when I'm in rehearsals and I'm just wandering around, not aimlessly, and sometimes it's very specific, sometimes it's a little bit more chaotic, and it sort of depends on the role that I'm working on. But I always start with stepping the text, so that is saying each word as I move. And the more you do that, the more you incorporate everything and get your whole body into it, the more emotions are going to come out for you. That's what I feel anyway. It is so important to get moving, to get active with it, because then that starts to feel alive. And I feel like there's a lot of stages to this, and we have to get into we have to have a hand phase where we're talking with our hands, and then after that phase, there's a stillness phase that you have to reach with the words, because the more still you are, and as I think we brought up this before, love doesn't hit a moving target. That's what Tom loves to say, and I really love that quote from him. And because I really do believe it is the next stage of your acting career is mastering this stillness, because it is so crucial. And the more you see like Leonardo DiCaprio, the more you see like big name actors, the stiller they are in a lot of very crucial moments. And I think that's where we need to get to in our rehearsal process. And that comes from doing it 250 ways. That comes from making sure that it's in our body. That comes from asking the emotional questions. The more you're asking these questions, the more you're finding, the better off you're going to be, the better your auditions are going to be. Keep going. Yeah, keep digging.
Yeah, and that stillness that's an awareness of camera lens. If you're in a close up, you can barely move at all because you can see your eyes and you're right here. I can't move and I'm out of it. If you're in a wide shot, then yeah, you can be a little more physical. So it's knowing that, and the difference is also when you're on stage, people are 400 feet away in a balcony. Well, yeah, then you got to be big and you got to be a little extra expressive so that you can project that to the back. But that also comes from maybe taking some on-camera classes as well. Now the recording portion of it. So we talked a little bit about rehearsals. Recording, again, they need to see you. You need good lighting. You need good, a decent audio setup. It's always going to be landscape. And leading up to that, I think making sure one other thing in your checklist should be a vocal and or body warm-up. You would never go to a sports tryout without doing a full warm-up. And a lot of people don't realize or forget that acting is very physical. It involves your full body, your entire nervous system. So you want to be relaxed and stretched and activated. You want all your vocal range to be fully there and your breath to be there and fully resonant. And sometimes people, I think, forget that, and they wake up in the morning and then they go do an audition, and it doesn't read as a fully expressive human being because they're not really fully vocally and physically there yet because they haven't done a full warm-up. So the idea of, like, even if that means go for a run and do a little calisthenics or a quick little home yoga or a little circuit training, like a HIIT workout where you're just fully alive, the blood's pumping, you got oxygen in your brain and fresh oxygen in your body. And then that when you're recording it, we won't get too much into the tech, but we have an opportunity now where you can do as many takes as you like. There's sometimes maybe a diminishing return of an investment if you're getting too nitpicky. Like ideally you do all your front loaded prep and then you can come in and in a handful of takes, bang out what you had planned and enjoy it. There goes the blur again. Stand by, and he's back. Ooh. Yeah, so the recording process too, the reality is you most likely need some help with that. So you either need to be connecting with someone via Zoom, which is what we do here at Actors Audition Club, or find a studio here in our studio or in a city that we'll be in, or if we're not in a city that you're in right now, then find a local studio. But getting some community help so that you have a partner and you have a friend and a second pair of eyes to show you that as well. Brandon, can you just share a quick sort of idea of, you've done so many, is there a difference in your mind between how a winning actor carries himself in a session, in an audition where they book the role, versus someone who comes in and isn't quite where they need to be? This is observation. So I would say you got your home set up, the H, you got all your execution and your game plan, the E, the rehearsal and recording, you've done it. Observations, I think, is just like anything in life. After you've done something, take a little debrief time, a little decompression, watch the audition, take notes on how you felt on audition day, how you felt in the studio, how you felt during the recording process, maybe some notes on what you learned, maybe some notes on what you liked. I think the more introspective you are in your life, the better, and you'll learn some things. So it's the idea of journaling, and it's the idea of reflecting. And a lot of people keep an audition journal, especially the idea that Pippa brought up, where you have these ideas afterwards. Well, if you're recording these ideas, even if it's afterwards, you might be able to work that into a callback, or you just might start seeing patterns where you're like, oh shit, I'm always missing this one category of choice or idea in my auditions. I need to spend a little extra time while I'm prepping before I record to make sure I always get that in there. And you'll start to see these kind of patterns. So just the O in your hero system is observing, taking some time to debrief. It's like, again, every sports team, they have game day, but then afterwards they look at the tape and they break it down and they see, what did I do well? What didn't I do well? What could I improve upon for next time? And if you're missing that step, you might be just repeating the same mistakes over and over again, which means you might not be growing as quickly as you could. And that also means maybe you're getting feedback from someone. You could be potentially asking your agent or another actor friend, or for those people here at Actors Audition Club, we always are giving people feedback, and we're really not submitting an audition that we don't feel is top notch, but we're always able to give that feedback to people so that they know what they're doing and how they're progressing.